Boy, I was expecting this film to be a complete turkey, but it was actually really plucking entertaining. Now you're cooking, Eli Roth. Oh, I do love myself a good cringeworthy pun. It just gives me so much joy. Anyway, welcome to yet another episode of Round the Clock Frights. My name is Josh. I hope you all had a really good Thanksgiving. I know how I spent my holiday. I spent my holiday watching Thanksgiving, a horror movie that horror fans have been waiting well over a decade for. What have we been waiting for exactly? Well, for those who don't know, this movie is a feature-length adaptation of a fake trailer that Eli Roth made back in 2007. It was part of the Grindhouse double feature directed by Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez, and honestly, before this movie, it was the best thing Eli Roth had ever done. That original Thanksgiving trailer was so hilarious. It had that cheesy, narration like, "This holiday season, you'll come home for the holidays in a body bag." It was relentlessly entertaining, and let's actually talk about Eli Roth, aka the Bear Jew. He's someone who I've never been a big fan of. I've never particularly liked any of his films in the past. Honestly, most of his films tend to feature unlikable, annoying characters who you have to spend the entire runtime with, and I guess that's part of the point, because in his films these characters do die in brutal, gruesome ways, and they're the type of people you want to see die in horrific ways, but that doesn't make it particularly enjoyable for me to watch. You all know me. I like horror movies that have relatable, likable protagonists, people who I can actually stand to be around for an hour and a half to 2 hours. So I've always had a bit of a beef with Eli Roth films, but this movie, Thanksgiving, I had to give him some credit because he made a really decent slasher flick. And it's kind of sad that this movie turned out to be a better slasher than both Scream 5 and Scream 6.
We always dreamed of doing a Thanksgiving-themed slasher film. It was the only major holiday without a killer. And so for years we thought of A Killer Pilgrim.
But yes, we finally have a proper Thanksgiving slasher flick, and I was reading an interview with Eli Roth recently, and he said the reason he wanted to make this film was because he always wanted a Thanksgiving horror film. He said there was always a bit of a lull between Halloween and Christmas because, Halloween, there's plenty of films to watch around that time of year. Christmas, there's a good number of horror films. Christmas Evil, Silent Night, Deadly Night, and of course, Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2, Garbage Day! But he said that he was never really given a proper Thanksgiving slasher film, so he's wanted to make this film practically his entire life, and it took him 16 years to get it released, but I would say it was worth the wait. Let's briefly talk about the plot of this film. So Thanksgiving takes place in the town of Plymouth, Massachusetts, which is obsessed with the holiday of Thanksgiving, and something goes wrong. One year during Black Friday, a riot takes place, a couple of people die at this Walmart imitation called Right Mart, and the town is heavily affected by this incident and the murders that took place. And so cut to 1 year later, and you have this group of characters being targeted by this mysterious serial killer, this killer who has targeted people involved with the Black Friday incident. And of course, in the grand tradition of slasher films, most of the victims are teenagers, young people, that he goes after, and most of them die in brutal, creative ways. And the whole movie is pretty much them trying to figure out who this serial killer is. And honestly, the mask that this killer wears is pretty cool. It's like this pilgrim mask. He wears the face of John Carver, and I can see it being a pretty popular Halloween costume going forward. It's a pretty memorable look. He even has the, pilgrim hat on top of it.
Oh, I've got plenty to be thankful for.
I used to love this town. Until what happened that night. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving.
Show some enthusiasm. Thanksgiving is an institution here.
I'll just say this, horror fam. Thanksgiving is a fun throwback to a number of old school slashers, like Black Christmas, Happy Birthday to Me, Prom Night, etc. In those films, a mysterious killer would often target a group of people, usually young high school or college kids, and brutally slaughter them one by one. My personal favorite is probably Black Christmas. That film was just so innovative. It pretty much pioneered the slasher genre, at least the slasher genre that we know today. You know, that film features the classic point of view camera angle where you're literally seeing through the eyes of the killer. It has a scene where the killer calls, his victims. Black Christmas is just utterly phenomenal and way ahead of its time. But yeah, Thanksgiving is, an homage to films like that. And those films also had a fun mystery aspect to them. A person could watch one of those films and have a fun time deciphering who the killer is and what their motivations are. I mean, they weren't amazingly complex, they weren't Agatha Christie novels, but, they were fun. They were really fun to watch. I will say the mystery aspect of this film isn't particularly strong. I mean, this is no Knives Out or Murder on the Orient Express. It's a slasher film, and you can probably guess who the killer is early on, although there are some red herrings, characters who you think might be the killer, but in the end, you find out who the real killer is, and yes, it is incredibly obvious, and it's definitely the weakest part of the movie. Just, look at the cast of this movie and try to guess who the killer is. You could probably guess it within seconds, but, I have heard complaints that this film does lean a bit too heavily on, tropes we've seen a million times before in films like I Know What You Did Last Summer, Black Christmas, and a number of films of this caliber, but it's an homage. Eli Roth is, paying respect to those kind of films, so I didn't mind those cliches. They didn't really bother me. In fact, I thought he did them really well, which is surprising because, as I've said, in the past, I have really disliked many of his films. Cabin Fever, not my thing. Hostel, no. Green Inferno? Oh, Green Inferno was so insufferable to get through.
No. I need a bathroom.
What? No.
But one thing you can't deny about Eli Roth is he knows how to construct some really creative death scenes. The kills here are unique and creative. The killer doesn't just use one weapon. He doesn't just use, say, an axe or a butcher knife. He has a whole arsenal. He uses a pitchfork. He uses an axe. He uses a buzzsaw at one point. And my favorite kill in this movie is one that involves a dumpster. Oh, it is just so graphic. And it was hinted at in the trailer, but the final result is just so amazing. It's definitely my favorite kill in the movie, but there's definitely some memorable ones here. I have to give Eli Roth credit for that. He knows how to be creative with his murder sequences. There's also some decent social commentary, but it isn't too heavy-handed, and he doesn't beat you over the head with his own personal views. He's done that before with films like The Green Inferno, because in The Green Inferno, you had a group of rainforest activists trying to stop these bulldozers from tearing the place down, and that film was just so on the nose with its commentary, and it was just so obvious and annoying. This film, thankfully, is not on the nose, but there is some commentary there, and it's pretty relevant, but it's not too obnoxious. The opening Black Friday sequence is a masterclass in anarchy, but it's also kind of sad to watch because, what basically happens is that you have this, furious crowd of people wanting to get into this store because they're promised a free waffle iron. So these people are going absolutely ballistic for a stupid item that they probably don't even need, and chaos ensues. They literally break through the glass, they trample over one another, they push each other into displays. It's just pure madness, and it reminds me of that great opening sequence from the movie Krampus, which didn't take place during Black Friday, but the same idea. You just have these greedy individuals rushing into a store and killing each other for stupid crap that they don't need. And that's all we need. We get it. Consumerism, it can be bad. People can be greedy. People can be obnoxious about the holidays. But yeah, this Black Friday sequence, oh, what a way to kick off the movie. A good horror film should have a memorable opening scene. A scene that sets the stage and shows the audience, you know, how crazy things are about to get, and this opening scene accomplishes just that. It was a great way to kick off this film. The characters here are fine. They serve their purpose. There's a couple of douchey ones, including this one guy who looks like a young David Schwimmer. There were so many shots where I was looking at this guy and I thought, he looks like Ross from Friends. Like, the resemblance to David Schwimmer was pretty uncanny at points. You know, there's the final girl, the girl who's like the nice one of the group, and of course she's gonna make it all the way to the end of the movie. There's this douchey jock who, you know, isn't particularly nice to people. In fact, he's rather rude, but they're fine. They're bearable. They're not, you know, insufferable to be around like some other Eli Roth characters, like the people in Green Inferno who were just I couldn't stand the people in Green Inferno, but, you know, they're fine. They're slasher victims, and like I said, they serve their purpose. My favorite character, though, there's this older guy who's like a weapons dealer, and he also sells drugs to teenagers, but he does it with such fervor. You know, he's proud of the fact that he's this weapons dealer, and his house his house is just filled with like hidden weapons. I mean, he has one gun hidden inside like a stereo. Like, he opens the stereo up and there's like a gun inside. He was definitely my favorite character. He was very, very entertaining to watch. But I do have some complaints. You know, as with every horror movie, there are definitely some problems. Again, this is an Eli Roth film, so it's definitely not flawless. The writing isn't always the strongest, and there's some really cringy bits of humor here. Eli Roth has a really weird sense of humor. He has a tendency to insert really bizarre bits of humor into his movies. In Cabin Fever, you have that pancakes kid who starts doing backflips for no reason. And The Green Inferno, you have that scene where the girl has explosive diarrhea after one of her friends has just been eaten alive. That's definitely a weakness of his, and there's some really weird bits of humor in this movie. This isn't a huge spoiler or anything, but there's one scene where a kid is giving a speech inside a classroom and these two girls just start rubbing his abs. Okay, that's weird, but sure. There's also a couple of random throwbacks to the original trailer, because the original trailer did have a couple of very memorable set pieces. There's the infamous trampoline scene, which, ooh, it did traumatize me. That trampoline scene in the original trailer is very hard to watch. He does recreate that here, although he does make some adjustments, because I don't think any mainstream studio would allow him to go all the way with that scene, at least not the way it was depicted in the original trailer, but it's still effective and it is still graphic, but it does kind of come out of nowhere. It's like he felt obligated to include famous bits from the original trailer, so he awkwardly shoehorned them into this movie, and, you know, they didn't always fit. It didn't always work for me. Some parts did feel a bit random, and the ending did feel very rushed and abrupt, and oh my god, this is a personal thing, but I am just so sick of the ambulance cliche, where you have that ending where, you know, the survivors are basically sitting inside an ambulance. You know, they might be bundled up in blankets and they're just so thankful to still be alive, and oh my god, the ordeal we just went through. And then they might drive off, you know, inside an ambulance. But I've seen so many recent horror movies that end with that kind of scene. Characters sitting in an ambulance, and it has just gotten so old. But this film doesn't end there. I mean, there is one final jump scare, which I won't give away, but if you've seen this type of movie, you can probably guess what it's going to be.
It is going to be a very happy Thanksgiving.
So overall, I had a good time with this movie. You could tell Eli Roth had a blast making it, and if the filmmaker is having fun, then the audience will definitely have fun as well. His passion is contagious, and I'll definitely be whipping this one out again next year. I get the feeling it's going to be the type of film that horror fans rewatch every holiday season. It's probably going to end up as a favorite, a cult favorite. But yes, guys, it's a Thanksgiving. It's a true treat for horror fans, and I urge you to go out and see it. It's definitely the type of film you want to watch with an audience, because the audience I watched it with had a rollicking good time. You know, we were all laughing and cheering. It was a good time. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me in my discussion of 2023's Thanksgiving, directed by Eli Roth. What did you guys think of this movie? Did you think that it was worth the wait? Did you enjoy the creative death sequences? Did you, not like how predictable it was? Let me know. I would love to read your comments, down below. And if you liked what you saw here, please subscribe to my channel, Round the Clock Frights, for more horrific content. Guys, Christmas is just around the corner. I already have some videos planned. I have some fun stuff lined up for the Christmas season. I can't wait to get those projects off of the ground. You guys have been absolutely tremendous in your support. Thank you so much again. It means honestly the world to me that you choose to tune in to my content. It's greatly appreciated. Anyway, guys, again, have a safe holiday season. You guys are the greatest. Stay safe out there, but also stay scary. And thank you again, boils and ghouls. Take care. White meat, dark meat, all will be carved. I love that trailer.